When we speak of ministry, I think it's very important that we first understand what that word means. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. I think too often we equate minister with pastor, and that's really not how the New Testament uses it. The word ministry simply means service, and it can either mean a role of service, an office of service, but it can mean really any service that is rendered to another. And so that's very important because sometimes even the question might be problematic for some Christians when they think, well, that just shouldn't be. Women can't be in ministry at all. But ministry does simply mean, biblically, service. And so I think that's very important. And the Bible itself gives all the many and beautiful ways that women not only can minister and serve, but the many and beautiful ways women should minister in the church. Thus, how the church should be constantly striving to identify, disciple, and train women in the church in theology, in scripture, in the languages, in hermeneutics, that they might, as older women, train up and teach and disciple younger women. That they might be teaching, that they might be instructing, that they might be helping to raise up the next generation of young women to be courageous, faithful women, mothers, teachers in the church for generations to come.
We should also remember that one of the great truths recovered at the Reformation was the truth that we summarize in the words, the priesthood of every believer. In the medieval church, there was an entirely separated caste of priests who stood between God and the congregation. And in a profound sense, the congregation was entirely dependent on the priests to minister the sacraments that would bring God's grace, that enabled the congregation to draw close to God. And the Reformation taught that the priesthood is not a separated caste of people, but every Christian is a priest. And what is sometimes missed there, that means every man and every woman is a priest before God. Now, the priesthood of all believers has sometimes been misunderstood as if I am my own priest before God. That's not what it means. It means every Christian helps every other Christian in the journey to God. And that is a task for every man and every woman in a Christian congregation, to be looking around to ask, how can I, as a priest before God, help other Christians in this congregation draw closer to God? And that should keep us all busy and keep us from envy.
But I think it just needs to be stated clearly. I know that we are all on the same page, but unfortunately, these sorts of things go out on this thing called the internet in our pockets, and it is just important to state clearly that in no way, shape, or form does the Bible teach or commend that women are to be ordained pastors, ordained elders. So, and while there is certainly disagreement on the subject of women as deacons, I'm just going to state very plainly that as I study the New Testament, and as I've looked into this matter in great depth over the years, as many have, even those who disagree, of course, I do not believe that the New Testament assigns in any clear way the office of deacon to women either. And here's the reality of it. The office of deacon, the office of elder, is a burden. Yes, a joyful burden in some ways. But our goal, whether we're men or women, is not to aspire to an office. Our goal is to aspire to service, humble service that doesn't need to parade itself, that doesn't need a title. The reason we're ministers, the reason we have men who are called deacons, the reason we have men who are called elders is not to lift them up and say, look how great he is. Yes, to serve as examples. Yes, a noble task, but not first and foremost to give them a title, but rather first and foremost to help God's sheep know, God's flock know that these elders and we as elders serving alongside of them and among them are here to help and here to shepherd, here to serve. The title is secondary. And so the constant, in my opinion, sort of exegetical gymnastics that people have to go through to try to squeeze in the office of deacon for women, I say, why? Why do that to them? Let them serve in the ways that they can and should in the church, not needing to have an office. Because God sees, God knows, God observes the service of each and every one of us, and that's ultimately what matters, not a title.